Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's AJ and I am here to do a July reading wrap-up that is very belated, but I'm hoping to get back onto my regular posting schedule of every Saturday a new video. For today I've got a little bit of a different setup because I recorded something new that I'm hoping to release within the next few weeks, and I just didn't have time to push my desk back to where it normally belongs. So I'm going to do my reading wrap-up a little bit differently this time. So in this video, I'm just going to talk about the books that I read in July and a little bit about the books that I'm reading this August, which is a much smaller list than normal because I just haven't had as much time this month. So first, I'm going to talk about the 4 books that I read in July and my thoughts on them. So let's get started with that. The first one that I'll bring over here is Great Expectations. And if you've been on my channel for a little while, you've probably heard me talk about this book. I took a while to read it. It's probably one of the longest periods of time that I've taken to finish a book, even of this length. It's about 443 pages, but it took me over a month, which is really not standard. I usually read a lot faster than that. I do think it was definitely worth it though. I had been scared off by this book for a long time because I attempted to read it when I was very young and I thought it was hard and I was not really into it. But picking it up again now, about 10 years later, I definitely had a different perspective on it and I understood it a lot better. And I think this book was actually really good, even though it did feel a little bit slow-paced sometimes. And it makes sense that it's slow-paced because it takes us from Pip's childhood all the way to adulthood. But I do think it was definitely worth it. I really like Charles Dickens' writing style. I enjoyed the way that he had Pip use some sarcasm, and just Pip's character voice overall I thought was really good. So if you are into classics, I definitely recommend this book. I believe my rating was between a 4 and 4.5 stars on Goodreads. And so this was definitely one that I enjoyed much more than I expected that I would enjoy it. And I am glad that I stuck with it and finished it all the way through. So I do recommend this if you are into classics. The next book that I finished in July was part of the Chronicles of Narnia, which I am rereading, sort of. I started reading it when I was really young and only got through the first 2.5 books, and now I'm reading the entire series. So this is book 4 in the Chronicles of Narnia series, Prince Caspian, and I enjoyed this book. I thought it was really good. I, of course, like book 2 better than any of them, and I think that's going to hold steady throughout the rest of the series because book 2 is the one that I remember reading about 10 years ago as a kid, and so rereading it just brings back happy memories. So I don't think any of the other books are going to be able to measure up to that childhood fairy tale feeling that book 2, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, is able to hold up to. But that being said, I did enjoy this book. I thought it was pretty good. I liked the storyline, and I really liked that the characters from book 2, Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy, come back to Narnia in this book because I liked that they were in the 3rd book, but I kind of missed them being main characters. I believe I rated it a 3.5 or 4 stars on Goodreads, and so I do also recommend this, but I would definitely recommend, if you're going to read the books in the Narnia series, read them in the order that the author intended, because they were written out of order, and some people like to read them in the order that they were written. And I think that is not bad, and it's actually really interesting to see the writing style develop, but I think if you're just looking for a good story that has beginning, middle, and end, I would start in the order that the author intended because they do seem to flow in that order pretty well. But it's interesting to read them in both ways. When I was younger, I tried to read them the other way, and then this time around, I'm reading them in the intended order from the author. So I think I'm enjoying that second way more story-wise, but as a writer, it's really interesting to look at it both ways. So I do recommend this book as well. I thought that was very good. The next one that I read is an Agatha Christie mystery. I read Murder on the Orient Express. This one was interesting to read, mainly because I had actually seen the 1980s, I believe it was 1980s, film adaptation of this book before reading it, years before reading it. And even though I saw the movie first, I still think the book was better than the movie. And I think that's true for all of the, well, both of the Agatha Christie movie adaptations that I have watched. Murder on the Orient Express and Death on the Nile. The movies were suspenseful, but the books had a lot more character development and details that made the mystery so much better. So I definitely think the book is better than the movies in this case. This was not my favorite Agatha Christie. I did like how she tied in all of the characters together, but I think I really enjoyed The Murder of Roger Ackroyd a lot more. This one I rated a 3.5 to 4 stars. I thought this was a very good mystery, and I do recommend it as well. Plus, this cover is just really cool. As cover art goes, this is a very nice book cover. So I enjoyed this one also. The final book that I read in July was a Sherlock Holmes mystery by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And this book I unintentionally read twice. I read The Red-Headed League, which is one of Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes short stories. And this is a big compilation of several Sherlock Holmes short stories. So I read the second one, The Red-Headed League, because I had already read A Scandal in Bohemia a while ago. But I didn't also realize that I had read The Red-Headed League a little while ago as well until I finished it and I remembered who had done it and how the mystery had unfolded. Still, though, I did enjoy the mystery even though I had already read it and did see the ending coming from reading it before. And it must have been long enough ago that I didn't remember it clearly because I read it with just a vague idea that I had read this story before. And then by the end, I remembered that I had definitely read it all the way through. And I believe it's even rated on my Goodreads, so I don't know how I missed that. But it was definitely still enjoyable, and I really like Sherlock Holmes mysteries. Sherlock Holmes is just an interesting character to read about, and I really like the perspective, how it's from first-person point of view, but told from the side character, Watson, instead of Sherlock. So it's really interesting. It's also a great way to keep all of the clues still a mystery to the reader without just feeling like the narrator isn't revealing enough to you, because Watson doesn't really know what's going on either some of the time. So I really like the writing style, I like the characters, and I'm definitely planning to read some more Sherlock Holmes. I believe years ago I rated The Red-Headed League a 4-star, and I'm going to keep that rating because I think it was a very good book and probably has the best effect the first time through. So I'll leave that one as I left it a few years ago. So that is all that I read in July. Next, I'm going to talk briefly about what I'm going to be reading this month. I have 2 books on my reading list that I'm currently working on. So I am reading the Holy Bible, and I am still working on this one. I've actually made a lot of progress, and at this point, I've started reading the Old and New Testament at the same time because the Old Testament is very long, and I really wanted to get to the new one. And so maybe I was impatient, but I started reading the New Testament alongside the Old Testament. And it's really helped my progress. I feel like the New Testament is easier to read, but it's going by quickly, and it's actually becoming easier the more time I spend on it. So if you feel daunted by trying to study the Bible, just start, because it does get easier as you go. You get more accustomed to the language that they use and the way it's written, and it becomes easier to understand. It's still hard sometimes. So if you are interested in reading it, I think just jumping in would be good. Maybe jumping in with the New Testament because it is a little bit of an easier read. But I really think it's important to read the whole thing. And then the other book that I am reading is On Stories by C.S. Lewis, continuing my C.S. Lewis author study. And this is one of his nonfiction essay collections. It's really interesting to read because he is talking about other people's stories and how he thinks stories should be written. And it's just really interesting to get that perspective. So far I have read the first essay, the introduction, and part of the second essay. The introduction I thought was actually really valuable because it gave a little bit more background on C.S. Lewis, which is important to me in my author study because I want to learn about not just how he writes, but also why and what he's writing. So I thought that introduction was really interesting because I got a little bit more history about him. I'm enjoying reading his perspective on it because it does make a lot of sense with Narnia and also his space trilogy that I've read so far, just the writing style and how he explains he thinks stories should be written. So I'm really enjoying this one. I'm also not thinking that I'm going to be finishing it this month because I'm only here, but I will hopefully be finishing this book pretty soon. So I will keep you updated on that. Those are the only books that I'm reading in August, and I'm going to be choosing new books soon. I'm also planning on putting out a couple more videos. I'm definitely still working on my How to Write a Book playlist series that I'm going to be adding to soon. So stay tuned for that and keep an eye out. I'm also going to do a little bit of experimentation. I am working on a video that's taking me a lot longer than I thought it would, just because I'm trying to experiment and be a little bit more creative with it. And I'm also doing a couple art videos. Let me know what kind of videos you want to see from me in the upcoming weeks, because I'm trying to brainstorm and get more creative with my video making, as well as trying to manage it with my new schedule since college is starting back. So just let me know in the comments. Also, let me know what books you've read recently and what your favorites were. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!